Showdown at Warg-Tooth Crossing, Chapter 14. The huge castle walls, built of solid imposing stone, never failed to fill Kale with a kind of awe. He stared at them as he approached the drawbridge, then brought his attention back to the guards stationed outside. He reached slowly inside his tunic and brought out his orders parchment to hand to the nearest guard. The guard took them from his hand, then read them over while the other guards stared at him sternly. Kale let his gaze return to the walls. Truly amazing what humans could build. Actually, Kale thought, it was probably dwarf contractors that directed the construction. "What's your business in the castle?" the guard asked, looking up at Kale. "To see the adjutant. As you can see from my orders, I'm eligible for discharge." "Right then," the guard said, handing back the papers. "Be on your way." Kale took the papers back and replaced them in his tunic. "Not so fast, soldier," he began. "You've seen the insignia on my uniform, and you've verified my rank with my papers." Kale strode forward to stand nose to nose with the guard. "I'm an officer in the king's army, and you will damn well show the proper respect." The guard's lip curled while he stared down at Kale. Then he stepped back and gave a salute. Kale looked over at the other guard and waited. The guard was about to open his mouth, then thought better of it, and stood up straight, looking ahead to salute as well. "Thank you, gentlemen," Kale said. He saluted back to both of them, then strode purposefully across the drawbridge. Once across, he relaxed his gait and bearing since his burns were still somewhat painful. After the 4 months he had spent recovering in the healing camp, they were still tender, and it didn't help to irritate them. The adjutant's office was easy enough to find among the bustle and flow of the castle. It was tucked up beside the main barracks. Kale went around some troops training in formation and came up to a wooden door that was half open. He knocked and a large man inside yelled, "Come in!" The sergeant sitting at the desk looked up at Kale and asked, "What's your business, Captain?" "I'm here to see the adjutant, Sergeant." "Concerning?" Kale looked hard at the sergeant. He didn't think it was any of the sergeant's business why he was there. But on the other hand, the man was the gatekeeper to what Kale needed. Blessed bureaucracy. "My discharge," Kale answered, showing his papers to the sergeant. "Oh, right then, Captain. If you'll just have a seat, the major will be with you shortly." Kale sighed and was about to sit down, but just then the other door to the room opened, and a balding man in an officer's uniform came out carrying some parchments. He began to speak to the sergeant while showing him the papers when he glanced up at Kale. "What's this, Sergeant?" "He just came in, sir. This is Captain Ironwood, here to see you about his discharge." Kale stood hopeful. Could this be his lucky day? Would he actually not have to wait all day? "Another one. Okay, well, see what you can do to fix up these figures on the pay allocations and show Captain Ironwood, sir," Kale offered. "Captain Ironwood into my office." "Yes, sir," the sergeant replied. The major shuffled into his office, and the sergeant, paying attention to the formalities, bade Kale to stand at the door with him. He waited till the major was seated at his desk, then announced, "Captain Ironwood, sir." Kale responded in kind by standing at attention and saluting the major while speaking. "Sir." "Please come in, Captain Ironwood. That will be all, Sergeant." "Sir," the sergeant replied, and he left the room, closing the door. Kale retrieved his orders parchment and handed it to the major, then remained at attention before his desk. "At ease, Captain," the major said, taking the parchment, "and have a seat." "Thank you, sir." "Says here you've served just over 20 years. "Yes, sir." "Seen a few scrapes, most recently in the Toth War." "Yes, sir." "You are eligible for a land pension if you like. Of course, given your experience, we'd love to keep you on. I'm authorized to offer you a signing bonus for 5 more years of service. Given your excellent record, I'd imagine a promotion would come with that." Kale looked at the map on the wall behind the major and a portrait of the king. He breathed in slowly. This was harder than he imagined. Military life was demanding, but it was at least something he knew. Weirdly, his eye started ticking. He rubbed it to make it stop. "Thank you, sir," Kale eventually replied. "That's very generous. But I'm of a mind to settle down at this point in my life." "I see. Are you married, Captain?" "No, sir. That is, not anymore, sir." "Military life is hard on marriage, isn't it?" The gods know I've had my share of troubles with my wife. Yes, sir. Just looking for a piece of land to call your own, then? Something like that, sir, Kale answered. What he thought was that he was tired of watching men's lives get thrown away on the whims of the nobility. Now that the Toth War is over and the peace treaty has been signed, the king is offering land near the frontier. It's good farmland, I'm told, so you should be able to make a good go of it. Yes, sir. Will you be heading down there right away? Actually, sir, there are a few loose ends of business I need to wrap up here in Aklasta. It will probably be a few months before I can ride out. The major frowned slightly. The military wasn't fond of retired men-at-arms hanging around in the city. They tended to find their way into trouble, as the only skill they had was combat. He said, Well, I shouldn't wait too long. Let's see. He dug through some files at his desk and looked over a parchment. Yes, there's a settlement that's actually been on the plains since before the war began, but has really started thriving since the peace. It's called Warg-Tooth Crossing. Such colorful names they use on the frontier. Anyway, there are parcels set aside for the king's pension, but at some point the locals will apply to buy them, since the land is bountiful. So again, I caution you not to tarry. Very good, sir. Are you quite sure that I can't convince you to stay? Good officers make all the difference. Kale thought back to all the battles. He had helped where he could, and certainly there were men alive now that wouldn't be if he hadn't been there. But did it really make a difference in the long run? Not really. And he was tired. Quite sure, sir. Well, I tried, didn't I? The major smiled perfunctorily. I'll have Sergeant Haywood draft up your official release papers and your land claim for the king's pension. You can come pick them up in a couple of days. I assume that is all, Captain? The major began shuffling through some other parchments on his desk. Yes, sir. Kale stood up at attention before the desk. Thank you, sir. Very good, then. Dismiss, Captain. Kale moved to the door. He opened it and stood at attention again, saluting the major. The major waved a salute at him while not looking up, and Kale left, closing the door. He walked past the sergeant, giving him a nod, and made to leave the office. The sergeant looked at him and said, Good luck on your retirement, sir. Thank you, Sergeant, Kale said, looking back through the door. I'll come back in a couple of days to get my papers. Very good, sir. One more thing. Be careful out there, the sergeant admonished. It's different when you're on your own. Kale grimaced, nodded, and walked out. Just his luck, it was starting to rain. Kale woke up on the uncomfortable cot and was momentarily disoriented from the vivid memory. It wasn't that long ago that he had released from the army, but sitting in his cell, it seemed to Kale like an eternity had passed. He rubbed his eyes and stretched. Then he yawned while standing up to move around the cell. Weak morning light was coming in the little barred window. It looked cloudy outside. He saw that Jack had been replaced by Jordan, who was sitting at the desk drinking coffee. Don't suppose I could have a cup of that, do you? Kale asked. Jordan looked up at Kale. Why not? He said as he poured Kale a cup. He brought the coffee over to Kale and handed it to him through the bars. Much obliged. Don't mention it. Jordan went back to sit down. Kale sipped the hot liquid. It was coffee, but only just. He was still thankful. Any word on anything? Kale asked. Nope, came the terse reply. A knock on the door got Jordan's attention, and he went to see who it was. He opened the door, and Eris walked in brushing snow off himself. He wore a large bandage on his head, but otherwise looked normal. Can I speak with the prisoner and give him some food? Eris asked. Well, some of the men are mighty suspicious of you, Eris. Red says you tried to cast a spell on him. He's correct, Eris spoke. I did try to use a spell, but I only wanted to restrain Red before he hurt someone else. If you're concerned, you can tie my hands if you like. Shoot, Eris, Red's an asshole, but I want your word there won't be no tricks. Bull would kill me, and I mean it, kill me if something happened here. He's a damn sight sore with Kale. You have my word, Jordan, Eris said. Jordan beckoned him into the jailhouse, and Eris stamped the snow off his feet, and then went over to Kale. God's damn, I'm glad you're okay, Kale said, reaching through the bars and grabbing Eris by the arm. The way Red cuffed you, I thought you'd had it. He certainly wasn't gentle, Eris said. Here, take this. It isn't much, but it'll do for breakfast. Kale received a basket from Eris that had some bread and cheese. He munched on it slowly and said, Thanks. He continued to chew the stale bread while Eris brought over a chair and sat quietly. After a while, Kale said, "It must be pretty bad if you're this quiet." "It is," Eris said. "Give it to me straight." "Conrad is okay, but he was planning on packing up and leaving. I think Bull both paid him off and threatened him at the same time. Either way, he and his family are staying on for now." "Damn." "Bull beat up one of the girls from the Toad pretty badly last night. Quinn and the healers took care of her, but she has a broken arm and will be off her feet for a while. The women are pretty scared, but aren't saying much." "He's not mad at them, though, is he?" "No, he's just taking it out on them." "Has there been any mention of my trial?" "Kale," Eris whispered in close to whisper, "word is there isn't going to be any trial. Bull is just going to have you killed, probably tomorrow." "I'm not surprised. I mean, who's going to stop him?" "Not the ranchers. Word of another family getting wiped out came in early this morning. Didn't stop the crew from loading up and leaving for an exchange with the Toth. Town is going to hell. Seems that way. Bull is tightening his grip to get the SOMAP profits out. I don't think he cares about anything else now. I don't know. In a strange way, you defying him has just made him more entrenched in exploiting the area with no other regard. I regret ever asking you to intercede on our behalf." "Yeah, well, don't worry about that now. What about you?" "They're watching me," Eris continued to whisper. "Honestly, I don't know how long I have either. If it wasn't for the winter weather and my injuries, I might try to leave, but as it is," Eris shrugged. "Look, Eris, is there any way you could get me out of here, like with a spell?" "Sure. I could fool the guard into letting you out, but then what? You'd never make it even to the livery. Believe me, Bull has a lot of men watching this place right now, especially while I'm visiting. I think he almost wants me to try something so he can kill us both and be done with it. I just can't cast spells over them all, particularly as I am now." Kale sat back downcast. "Damn, I never thought it would come down to something like this. I thought I'd die in a battle or some crazy accident. But to be executed by a gang of criminals? You know, this is part of the reason I retired from the military, so I couldn't be sent to be killed at someone's whim. Now I'm going to be killed at someone's whim. Funny, huh?" Yes, quite amusing." Kale rubbed his eyes and began ticking again. Damn, it was the most irritating thing. He got up and paced the cell, then looked out the barred window. He asked, "You still think anything we do can make a difference, Eris? You think that us just deciding this is wrong will make any difference when they kill me and maybe you too?" "I really don't know anymore, Kale," Eris replied, shaking his head. "I thought I had some good answers, but, as you've said before, this isn't the academy. I have heard the expression, where there's life, there's hope, so I suppose we still have hope. It just doesn't seem very sustaining." "No, it isn't. In the military, we also have an expression. It goes, 'Hope is not a plan.' Unfortunately, right now," Kale walked back in front of Eris and pushed back against the cell bars, "I don't have any other plan." Eris nodded, then put his head down in his hands. "Hey, how's your head?" Kale asked, reaching down to take Eris by the arm. "I am a little woozy, and my head hurts quite a bit. I made myself a little something for it earlier, but I think I'll have a little more and lie down when I get back home." "Yeah, you should go now. Save your strength." "You sure? I can really stay as long as you like." "No, you go home. Thanks for breakfast and the news. I'd like to think that one day Bull will get what's coming to him, but I don't think it'll be me that does it. That asshole didn't even earn that fancy ring of his." "What do you mean?" "He tells everyone he found it in the caves during one of their sorties down there. But Quinn told me the truth one night. He stole it off a dying wizard who was wounded in a back alley fight in Cave Town." "That's intriguing, but what I meant was, what do you mean by fancy ring?" "His ring of Olympus. He was bragging about it the night he used it to destroy the Black Wraiths. It's why no one can ever challenge him. He just reaches out his finger and you get a bolt of lightning for your trouble." "Ring of Olympus. Oh, that explains so much. No, I never knew. I figured he had some kind of artifact, but I have never heard of anyone talking about it. A ring of Olympus can definitely cast Laios Midder, a lightning bolt spell. What? I'm not sure. I think I have a tome that describes rings such as that in detail. I'll have to go take a look." "You have any books that can help us teleport out of here?" Not really, no. Although I have one that goes in depth on the theory. Theory isn't going to do us much good, I'm afraid. No, it won't. Eris stood looking at Kale, who looked right back through the bars. They both stood silent for a moment, then Kale said, "You've been a good friend, Eris. Been good knowing you." Kale stuck his hand through the bars. Eris took Kale's hand and shook it. "It's been good knowing you, too." Eris smiled wanly, then turned to go. He waved his thanks at Jordan, then left into the blowing snow. "I kind of like that little guy," Jordan said, as he made sure the door was closed behind Eris. Kale took a drink of his coffee, which by now was quite cold. "Me too," Kale agreed. "Any chance I could get a top-up on this coffee?" "Sure." Jordan fetched the pot off the fire and poured some into Kale's cup. "Thanks for being decent, Jordan. Kale, you're all right, and so is Eris. But you and him, your times are almost up. I like you both, but that's just the way things are. Least I can do, though, is let you have a hot cup of coffee." Kale drank the hot coffee and let the warmth seep from his insides. He eventually said, "You know, this thing with Bull can't last forever." "Probably not," Jordan agreed. "But that's tomorrow's problem. And if you don't mind me saying, tomorrow's something you ain't got to worry about." Kale nodded and sat back down on the cot. He drank down the coffee, then lay back to close his eyes and try to relax. It wasn't easy with his damn eye ticking.